Why does Trump cheating at golf bother you? Why is that a big deal?
It's a very interesting window onto him as a person. He'll buy a golf course and play around by himself, call that the first, club championship that he's now the winner of, and put a fucking plaque on the wall, right?
Welcome back to another episode of More from Sam, where we get to hear more from Sam. Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. Going
Good
well.
to see you.
Are you ready for the shows coming up next week in New York and Boston?
I am. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. As you know, I've been changing the talk incrementally as things happen in the world. So it's kind of a living document at this point, which is fun. I haven't had I can't even remember having a project like that where it just keeps changing and it keeps maintaining its relevance to me because there's a date on the calendar where I have to deliver it by. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
It is enjoyable because I get to hear, obviously read the different drafts, and I feel like I'm gonna get to watch the first few shows will be probably entirely differently or a lot different from the final shows.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I kind of just let people know that we're going to be announcing some new shows coming up next year. So if anybody wants to get notified about those, please head over to samharris.org and join the mailing list because we're going to make that announcement, I think next week or the week after for 2026. And anybody who wants to come to Boston, I think that show sold out in a day or two. New York has a few tickets, maybe a dozen or so for next week, October 15th, I believe. So come out and join us. All right, on to the first topic. Trump got a deal done. And that's something I don't believe you believe would have happened under a President Harris.
It pains me somewhat to admit this, but yes, he's certainly been good for the Middle East and for Israel in a way that I don't think there was any reason to expect Harris to be good, and Biden certainly wasn't good. Apart from the first few weeks after October 7th, or maybe a couple of months after October 7th, he proved quite an unreliable ally there. So yes, I think Trump, for reasons that are still somewhat inscrutable. I mean, I think he's also an unreliable ally for Israel. All the Israelis and the Jews of the world who think that he's just an unalloyed good for their cause. You're just a clear-eyed defender of Western civilization generally, and of the lone democracy, embattled democracy in the Middle East. In the case of Israel, he certainly is not that. I don't think he understands the issues. I think he's surrounded by various maniacs who are wanting to break trust with Israel, and there are anti-Semites on the right wing who have J.D. Vance's phone number on speed dial, I can imagine. So it's a very muddled picture, just how good he is for the Jews. But it's true that the Democrats can be counted upon to be reliably bad for the issues around domestic anti-Semitism and defense of Israel. It also, so what's inscrutable about Trump's situation is that obviously he's got all these entanglements in the Gulf. He's just grifting like a madman. He and his family and their allies, earning billions of dollars, cutting deals with the Gulf, cryptocurrency and otherwise. And he's so there's this kind of this weird algebra around his short-term and narrowly constructed personal interests and whatever his allegiance is to Israel, his hatred of immigration from so-called shithole countries, his animus toward our European allies and their multiculturalism, which I actually understand, at least that second piece. So all of that summates into him just being able to ride into Qatar and start making demands and offering promises that Israel will never bomb them in Doha again. And so yeah, it seems like he at a minimum, it seems like the hostages are going to come home. We're recording this on a Friday. I think they're expected to be released on this coming Sunday. It remains to be seen whether that's going to happen, but I think everyone believes it's going to happen at this point. I think I'm more skeptical than many are about the durable peace that this is promising. I'm not expecting that, and I will be genuinely surprised if this really does offer in a new dawn and a two-state solution, and the lions lay down with the lambs. I think that's all to be bracketed with serious doubts, no matter what happens in the next 48 hours. But this is definitely better than we could have expected under Harris. I freely admit that.
Is that why you think that the entire world is not cheering about this? All those that thought this was a genocide, well, why aren't you coming forth to say, all right, well, that's whatever that was, it's now over. Do you think it's because it's not durable peace and
No, no, no,
they're not
no. I
making
mean, the Mark Ruffalo's of the world who are not cheering this, it has nothing to do with their circumspection around thinking that the ceasefire can become a durable peace. No, they just don't really care about what they say they care about in the end. I mean, there's a very cynical and delusional mixture of kind of moral emotions and moral illusions here that is causing everyone to celebrate the wrong thing, not celebrate when they get precisely what they said they wanted, et cetera. I mean, if you really thought there was a genocide in Gaza and this is ending it decisively, where are the celebrations? Where is Greta Thunberg and Mark Ruffalo and the rest of the celebrity brigade who doubled down on so-called Palestinian rights, which was really just useful idiots supporting Hamas in the end. Where are their appeals to Hamas to accept this deal immediately? Every hour they delay is costing more lives. Where's the pressure applied to Hamas by the people who pretend to support the Palestinian cause? I mean, maybe it exists somewhere, but I certainly haven't seen it. And they should be celebrating more than anyone. They should be celebrating as much as the families of the hostages. I mean, they should be an unalloyed good from their point of view. What's
right?
happening here?
But given that, they should have been pushing Hamas a long time ago to return the
Yeah,
hostages.
of course.
Yeah, but so maybe from their perspective, maybe they're thinking that this is just not a good deal, and the Palestinians are gonna find themselves yet again under the Israeli thumb of power and to have lost their rights in whatever position they take, and that this deal, they just don't have a lot of faith in Netanyahu and Trump that they're gonna do what they say, and, they're gonna lose all their leverage giving the hostages back, and we'll be right back where we were before, again, in 10, 15 years. So, again, I'm just trying to paint their position as best I can. I obviously understand the cynical take that they just hate the Jews, but there may be other reasons. Maybe they wanna wait a few weeks. Maybe they wanna see how things play out before they begin to celebrate that
Well,
the
above all, they claim to want a ceasefire, right? Just stop the killing. That's just the master value, right? That they're expressing. And this does that, and then stands a chance of making that ceasefire a durable peace if the other parties in the region, the other Gulf states, take an interest in helping restore order and rebuild Gaza. Right, this whole plan to rebuild Gaza to some degree, what's worked for him is this kind of madman theory of diplomacy, right? I mean, he came in there and basically said, "We're going to ethnically cleanse the region and erect gold statues to me and open casinos." Right? I mean, that was basically the vision. I mean, he literally shared an AI animation of that, just pimping the ride of the Middle East, Trump style, and he got behind that, and it's just that's a it's a was a morally obscene declaration of an intention, which just rattled the brains of every party to this conversation, and clearly affected the thinking in Qatar. Um, the other crucial piece, though, is not just Trump's weird contribution to it; it's the fact that all the while Israel was decisively winning the war against her myriad enemies, right? So it was the destruction, the apparent, virtually complete destruction of Hezbollah, not totally complete, but decisive. The bombing of Iran, along with what the U.S. did there, the um, complete defeat of Hamas. I mean, Hamas, by all accounts, scarcely exists anymore. I mean, there's a few people who are going to stand up and declare victory, no doubt, after Sunday. But if Israel hadn't accomplished all of that on the battlefield, there would be no deal here. It's not just a matter of diplomacy.
So you said you're not optimistic that there's gonna be a durable peace. Why is that? And, is there anything that could happen that you would think, would make for a lasting peace in the Middle East? Why don't you see, the Qatari, partnership there and along with, Saudis and see
Hmm.
Turkey coming in? Why don't you see a future for the Middle East where there is some form of lasting peace.
Well, so the Qataris are a unique case because they're playing a double game of funding terrorism and funding Islamist and jihadist um, memes worldwide. I mean, they're destabilizing much of the Western world with their funding of Islamist lies and stealth theocracy, right? I mean, they're basically an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood, or the Muslim Brotherhood has command of their theology. So they're state funders of terrorism, and any negotiation with them or alliance with them on any topic should be clear-eyed about that. Now, let's say they had a sea change from the top in their attitude toward um, Islamism and jihadism, of the sort that someone like MBS seems to have had, right? So MBS is seemingly reining in the fundamentalist clerics in his own society and giving a lot of scope to the more secular, modern aspirations of Saudis, and other Gulf states have a kind of secular leaning there too, and that's all to the good. I mean, you sort of have to get the help from wherever it's coming. I mean, MBS is a very mixed figure ethically, right? He kills journalists and he imprisons people for having advocated the very things that he's now implementing in society. If I'm not mistaken, some of the women who protested, for the rights of women to drive are still in prison, even though he's kind of rolled out the rights of women to drive in Saudi. So this is not a bastion of freedom. This is an intolerant despotism. Still, if he's reining in uh, religious fanaticism in the Gulf, and if the other states begin to do that, that's all good, and we have to work with that. But the reality is, there's going to be there is, and there will continue to be a tension between what these rulers want and the so-called Arab street, right? And from the point of view of the real religious fanatics, these look like apostate regimes now, right? And they always have. I mean, that was always Al Qaeda's view of the Saudis. There's this tension there that still exists, and there's the source code of Islam that's there to be rediscovered at every point along the way. And even if uh, even if everyone got on the same page and accepted Israel in the Middle East, uh, it doesn't change the fact that you have 50,000 people on the terror watch list in the UK alone, right? I mean, you've got the problem of jihadism and Islamism in Western Europe that is continuing to seethe. Um, these ideas aren't going away. These ideas have to be combated. And it is a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that MBS is reining in his own jihadists and Islamism. I mean, that is good. But there's a war of ideas that has to be waged and won within Islam, and there's a civil war that I mean, there's no way it's going to be just a matter of ideas. Muslims have to be willing to fight jihadists, right? Across the board, and purge that whole orientation from their faith. Um, that's going to be very hard to do, and I think the willingness to do that in 100 countries is going to be very hard to kindle. So I mean, it's a huge project. I don't expect our children to live to see the end of this project. That's my sense of
Hmm.
what has to happen.
I'm a little bit more optimistic, but let's move on to. I really do think that we're going to see some sea change there, and I really do. I hope in our lifetime that we do find that, as I've said, that Beirut and other wonderful places return to be glorious, and with
Well,
prosperity
the
comes.
change will have to be. There's a Potemkin uh, view of secularism and tolerance that you see in some of these Gulf states. Uh, but these are totally authoritarian regimes, right? I mean, so they're gonna. So the question is, how are they going to lock all this down? How are they going to change minds? How are they going to establish peace in the region? How is Gaza going to be a vacation place when you still have jihadists who want to spread the faith to the ends of the earth and establish a caliphate, right? Um, there's going to be a lot of violence keeping a lid on all of that. I don't see how that happens otherwise. It's not going to be a democracy. The idea that you could spread democracy to these societies and have everyone just normalize and secularize, and that I do not see that happening in the lifetime of anyone
Maybe
listening to
just a
us.
handful of benevolent dictatorships. Maybe that'll work. Who knows? Uh,
Or just dictatorships. Yeah.
yeah, they get what they need. Moving over, did you see the announcement today about the Qatari Air Force facility base in Idaho
No,
that's been
I heard
announced?
a rumor of it, which,
Yeah,
yeah, my jaw is still somewhere
yeah,
on the
sounds
floor.
a little bit like a Borat skit, but apparently these are similar arrangements we've had with Singapore, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Germany, as well as NATO allies, other ones, including Italy, Netherlands, as well as Turkey. So I wonder just the timing of the announcement of this. Again, I just saw this. I don't know that much about any of this. I'm wondering if maybe it's a distraction or
Uh,
it's part of the
well,
deal.
it's, it's part of the plane. It came over with the plane,
Yeah, the
the gift
plane.
of the $400 million plane. It should be of concern to people that Qatar is literally the largest state funder of U.S. academic institutions, right? A foreign funder of U.S. academic institutions, to the tune of billions of dollars. Um, what's that for? Well, it's just a sane watching of their theocratic agenda. Um, Al Jazeera is not a journalistic organization. It's a psyop that's been performed on the West for however many years. These are not good faith actors at all. So the question is, what happens over the course of some years of engagement with them? Uh, that remains to be seen. But I think the only thing that really mattered so far is Israel winning the the real wars on the ground and showing that if Qatar doesn't get on the right side here, they Doha itself is part of the field of battle, right? I mean, that I think got their attention.
What do you say to those who might say Qatar's giving billions of dollars to Harvard and Northwestern, all these institutions? So why can't Trump get a plane? Why aren't they both wrong?
They are both wrong. I mean, they're both wrong. They Harvard shouldn't be taking funding from a Mideast theocracy that is now creating a Mideast studies program that is indoctrinating a generation of credulous students into a distorted view of the history of the region, or the ease with which the open societies can integrate greater numbers of Muslim citizens, right? I mean, it's just not. It's again, it's a purely propagandistic and sinister operation. But we have so in America, the Council on American Islamic Relations (CARE) is imagined to be the Muslim equivalent of the ACLU or the NAACP. It's nothing of the sort, right? It is a Islamist front group. It is a stealth theocracy group of bullies, um, and yet it is the mouthpiece for the Muslim community that people listen. Like so, when something happens in the news of relevance to the Muslim community in America, it's someone from CARE who gets on CNN to tell the world, to tell the rest of the country what what Muslims think. Right now, this is a totally sinister arrangement. I mean, these are not, again, they're not good faith actors. There are direct ties between CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood, and that's the theology in the background that is guiding everyone's actions here. I mean, it's just not there's if you think of it in terms of communism. I mean, think of a set of ideas. Islamist. The fundamentalist Islam is a set of ideas, and it has its adherents in every Western country, and they have an agenda. And if you switched it out from being a religion to a political religion like communism, everyone would suddenly understand, okay, there's something to pay attention to here. This could be an instance in which the master value of tolerance in an open society is being used to subvert the society itself and to evaporate the very reality of tolerance. Right? I mean, this is the paradox of tolerance that Karl Popper described. You can't be endlessly tolerant of intolerance and survive as an open society. And what we have here in an organization like CARE, and in the seemingly generous benefaction of a state like Qatar, again a state that openly uh, funds terrorism. We have people who are deeply illiberal and committed to an illiberal worldview, using our own liberal values as a shield to protect their project inside our societies, right? And so they'll be the first to cry intolerance. I mean, they're just so everything I'm saying now is going to be if any of them listen, this will be derided as Islamophobia and bigotry and racism, as though that made any sense. Um, and they will be championing our virtues of tolerance and non-discrimination, right? Whereas the actual worldview that they want to implement in their own lives and in the lives of others is deeply intolerant, right? And so that's open societies have to find some way of playing this game successfully, so as to defend their own values without tipping over into proper closure, or xenophobia or bigotry or jingoism. I mean, all of that, all of those looming problems on the right are worth worrying about. I mean, this is back to David Fromm's great line that, if liberals can't figure out how to police borders, fascists will. That's the problem. We're between, useful idiots on the left just letting the barbarians in the gate, and fascists on the right showing you how to close a gate properly. We don't want to be at either extreme.
Yeah, but can you see the argument from the right that says, okay, now when Trump does it, it's a problem and everybody's screaming. But for years, if not decades, the Qatari money has come in, and you could argue it's been
No,
damaging to society in a major
I
way.
think we
I know
should
you're
scream
saying
about
it.
both. But no, the one difference, and it's an important difference, is Trump is president of the United States. He's monetizing the role of president in the most corrupt way. I mean, it's so corrupt that it's just clear that Republicans no longer have an idea of corruption in their minds. I mean, it's like they've just torched the very distinction between being corrupt and non-corrupt, right? No one is even paying attention to any of this, apparently. But no, he is just, it's a kind of kleptocracy, right? He's using the levers of our state power to enrich himself and his friends very, very directly, right? He is taking $2 billion directly into the family business from the UAE, and then greenlighting the sale of our most advanced AI chips to the UAE, right? And all the while knowing that the UAE does joint military exercises with China, and that it's a security concern that our best chips get in China's hands, right? Like it's pure graft and personal corruption, and we have never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Speaking of Trump, you sent me a clip yesterday. I think it was from 2018 about him cheating at golf, and where I think he had won the club championship that he actually didn't play.
Right.
And while that seems like, Kim Jong Un level of insanity, why does Trump cheating at golf bother you? Why is that a big deal?
Well, it's a very interesting window onto him as a person, and people who don't follow golf have no feel for this, right? I mean, golf is, as far as I know, a total outlier with respect to the norms of the sport. I mean, so you take like one extreme is you've got soccer where people pretend to have been fouled, and they fall down. The soccer players fall down on the ground and flop around in agony, and then the moment the foul isn't called, in their favor, they just jump back up and they're fine, right? And it's just this bizarre, really shameful performance, but the norms of soccer have just relaxed and relaxed and relaxed to the point where everyone accepts it's just part of the game. Or, in hockey, you can just begin, punching somebody in the face, seemingly violating the rules of the sport, but everyone accepts it as like, this is sort of the sport now. Somebody gets to punch somebody in the face. Um, Golf is in a different universe, right? When Tiger Woods won the Masters, which is the most prestigious event in the U.S. at least, Uh, if he had misreported his score, or if he had failed to even sign his scorecard, he would have been immediately disqualified. He would have lost the Masters, right? The second place finisher would have won the Masters. It's impossible to even understand that in relation to other sports. I mean, it's like, it's like Tom Brady, forgetting to sign a piece of paper after winning the Super Bowl, and they lose the Super Bowl, right? It's just, how would anyone even think that should be, within the realm of possibility? That is golf. Golf is just a religion of personal integrity, really. I mean, it's just, it is a, so the idea that you would cheat at it. So two things. One is that it it is central to Trump's life. He spends 30% of his time on the golf course, right? As president, he has done that. And he spends more time just hanging out at his own golf courses at great expense to the US taxpayer. I mean, they charge millions of dollars that go directly into Trump properties for all these trips to his golf courses. But golf is the center of his life, and he cheats at it in ways that should be impossible. I mean, he cheats at it in just over the course of play. I mean, you can see the footage of his caddy just dropping a ball, where he lost the ball in the water, or it was ball went into the sand trap, and the caddy will just drop a ball, to give him a more favorable lie. Um, but then there are all these other stories of him pretending to have won tournaments that didn't even exist. Like, he'll buy a golf course and play around by himself, and call that the first, club championship that he's now the winner of, and put a fucking plaque on the wall, right? Or he'll, in the story you heard, he there was a tournament he didn't even enter, right, where a guy won it, and then he sees the guy on the golf course, after the tournament, and says, you didn't really win that tournament, but because I didn't play in it, so let's do a little playoff right now. And the guy's playing with his son, and he doesn't want to, but then Trump says, no, we're doing a playoff right now, and he does a playoff with him where, Trump hits a ball into the lake, but, pretends it didn't hit it into the lake, pretends the son hit it into the lake, steals the son's ball on the green. I mean, this has all been reported by a guy who wrote a book.
But it's worse. It's worse. It's not this. It's not. Gavin Newsom is going to be the presidential nominee for 2028. Do you agree with me yet? If not, who you got? How do you balance avoiding social media and staying informed?
Obviously, it gets in even if you really just don't look at it.
I know you commonly refer to the best podcast ever with Omar Aziz as largely a waste of time. I strongly disagree. What is your biggest fuck up ever?